Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community.
Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. Thank you for joining. I am your host, CL Palmer, aka CL Pod Gang, sitting in for the boss lady, Michelle Gomez. And, she's out there enjoying life. So I wanted to keep this train going. And today on the podcast, I have my homie, Walter Gaynor II, aka Boss Locks, Mr. Boss Locks himself. Let me say that right. And he is somebody who I know personally, but I thought was a good fit to come onto the podcast because Boss Locks is, let me say it right, they're redefining professionalism, elevating Black voices and providing that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. And I felt like that message really fits with Marketing for the Culture because we're out here trying to get people to understand that, this diversity, this inclusion thing is really important. So with all that said, Walt, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm doing great. This is, I really appreciate the invitation to come on this show. Marketing is my background. It's kind of what I went to school for. And I actually remember going to different luncheons at marketing associations back in the day. So I always thought okay, man, one day, I'm going to be a speaker up there, do my little luncheon. Now I'm out here on the podcast, man. Not only just any marketing association, the African American one. So that's really dope, man. I love this. I love what y'all are doing.
Yeah, man. Big shout out to Michelle. She's been keeping this thing afloat. And, we known each other, starting at the beginning of the summer. I just say that. And, everything that she's told me about what she's been working on, I felt like was important enough that I could pour myself into this as well, man. Mm-hmm. And so just being somebody who is big on that community aspect, I want to talk to you about that actually later on in the show. But I guess to start off this conversation, man, tell me why Boss Locks is really necessary in the first place.
Good question. I like that. I feel a lot more importance with it, necessary. Boss Locks, it started because of a problem I was trying to solve. And that was I'm a Black man graduating from college, getting my degree, which means when I go into job interviews, I have that to, talk about myself, to let people know I know things. But also knew at the same time that I was a Black man going into these spaces with locks, long locks, couldn't hide them, couldn't put away, pretend like they weren't there. And I was aware that there were a lot of people who felt like locks, really natural hair in general, did not exist in professional settings. So I was graduating, trying to find all these different tips, looking up top interview tips for people with locks, found nothing. Graduating from college, you have these interview practices. And so a lot of people are looking up interview tips, but I was looking, okay, I get these are the tips, but what do I do? I'm Black. I have locks. What do I do?
You need something specific.
Yeah. And I found nothing. So, I started just asking people I knew who had locks, and, there's three people in particular I spoke to. One was a business owner. He had his own business downtown Charleston. It's an accounting business. And, he was just when you're on your own business, no one can tell you what to do. And I was like, okay, cool. But about the job thing. So I spoke to someone else I knew, family friend. She was in banking. She had locks. Unfortunately, she kept her hair covered all the time. She didn't even go by her first name because, there's a whole bunch of discrimination based on names as well. So, just kind of watching the way she moves, she has some other advice for me. And then that third person, Drasana McDaniel, was the first guest on my show. I started speaking to her, and, she had locks. She went by her first name. She was just boldly herself. And man, the advice that she gave, just be unapologetically you, not going to tone down Blackness for other people to make other people comfortable is just amazing. So, these conversations, I was just having to learn how I could do it, but people really pushed me into making this a thing. And so, it took a couple years, long as time, a lot of, uh, sorry, a long time, a lot of personal development. And yeah, just like 3 years later, I launched the show, Boss Locks, to spread the message and unite everyone, let people know that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. And, there's not just one way to be Black, it's all different ways and it's all great. So, yeah.
Okay. So you basically got three distinct perspectives on how to handle the natural hair and being Black in a professional setting. And it pretty much informed you that there is probably some, almost like some shame associated with some of this, even though it's like who you are.
Mm.
And I found that to be interesting about the second person that you mentioned. And maybe that's not the best word, but I feel like uh, what you just told me lets me know that Boss Locks has uh, a lot of work to do. So I guess based on that, what keeps you inspired to keep building Boss Locks?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Like I said, I started this to find answers for myself. And back then, I didn't think anyone else had this problem. In fact, I thought that when I actually started to do something, people would be like, this doesn't matter. That they get that to a certain degree, but I think they didn't really understand the whole vision and the picture behind it. But
Right.
now it's kind of looking back on like, little videos I recorded myself back then, like things I wanted to do, kind of looking back and like remembering where I was reminds me like what's important and what I need to do. Um, but then also like there's this kid in my family, my nephew, who he's in this position where he has to decide like, is he going to cut his hair or get kicked out of school? And like you hear that all the time, like nowadays, all the time, like DeAndre Hopkins, he was suspended from school in Texas, and the whole nation came behind him, supported him, and it was wonderful. The school is, I think, now kind of changed the rules a little bit because his cousin was affected by it as well. But that
Mm.
there's still a lot of people who are affected by this that you don't hear about. People like him. So I'm out here like, okay, yeah, I got to change in all professional settings in the workplace, but it's also for the next generation coming up. Like I want to make sure that they know that the hair isn't gross, disgusting, dirty. It doesn't link you to criminal behavior activity. There's nothing wrong with your hair. It's the way that it naturally grows. And there's a whole culture behind it and all these different people and all these different places who have their hair and still living their best life. So the combination of remembering that just because we see a lot more support for it online, there's still people who need support who don't have anyone backing them. So this work, it's like bigger than me. It's really like for the culture, for the world. It's beyond. Like I'm looking like, okay, what can I do now to affect things like 10 years down the road, 30 years down the road, all these things. So
Okay. So I want to talk to you about the Crown Act that got started out there in California. But before I get to that, I just want to know with Boss Locks, you got the podcast, man. You got like 3 podcasts. You doing these Facebook lives, Instagram lives, Clubhouse, and like, bro, you be
can't
all over the
stop.
scene, man. You be getting to it. And so, man, so what's really next for Boss Locks? Or like,
What's
what's in
next
the
for
next
Boss
chapter?
Locks?
You know,
Um,
because I know you're trying to grow, trying to, you know what I'm saying, attract more people into the community. But like,
mhm.
like what's that? What's the real next step for Boss Locks?
The real next step. So of course, it's a podcast, and like you mentioned, the working while Black community. and it's definitely growing in numbers. Like that's the goal, to grow in numbers, get more people in the community, get more people to listen to the podcast, get guests, all those things, grow the podcast to Joe Rogan level. That's obviously like the goals and everything. But I guess for real, the next step is like, now I'm looking at how can I take what I'm doing and really, really start to apply impact? So I'm like, okay, so all these stories and advice I'm getting from Black leaders all over the place, how can I take what they're sharing and put it into action? Take communities and be like, all right, now here's how we go about doing things. Earlier this year, I had a live on Facebook called Holding Cops Accountable. And, it was a lot of great advice. So it's like, okay, so we have this like a whole like vault of advice and information shared, but how do we put it into action? Those are like the questions people are asking. So the next step is, continue to build, grow the brand, but more than that is to start changing lives now. Because like, of course, we want to do work that solves things, and there's nothing we could do overnight, but people need support. So starting to have those conversations and actually go out and change the way things are happening now, change the way we're being policed, change the way we're being policed by cops, but also in the workplace and schools, all these things. So I want to take everything and really apply it, apply the pressure.
Okay, so you want a movement. You want some boots on the ground.
Yeah,
To
man,
say,
I'm tired of like, I feel very fortunate for where I am, but I also at the same time I see like how people are living, how I almost was living not too long ago. And it's like we need change, we need economic advancements, more money in our pockets. We need to find more opportunities. And yeah, it's not okay the way a lot of people have to live, the way we have to live, and I was kind of tired of it all.
right. So that, man, that's interesting, man, because I definitely have made some changes in myself, and I've been trying to figure out like what's the best way for me to have some impact out there.
Hmm.
And I think what I have to do is really just use my gifts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know I'm not the person who's going to be in front of the crowd leading this revolution. But if I can just use my talents to maybe open up a few minds to really think a little bit different, then I feel like I've made my impact that I can make, because that might turn into the person who's going to stand into the front of the crowd and lead this revolution. So, I have to just make sure I do my part, man. So what you're saying is very inspiring and just going to keep me on my path, man, and get me to working on something bigger and better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's like it's interesting because in a way you're already like doing part of it. The African American Marketing Association.
This is
That's
true.
revolutionary, bringing together Black minds from all over who are in marketing in different stages and just kind of hearing what they have to say. So it's like it's uplifting them, it's putting them in positions where they could look back like, yeah, I was interviewed here. I'm part of this association, and I could network with all these other people, and we could really start supporting each other. So it's like I had a guest on my show, Thando Kafele, and we're talking about, the natural hair movement and everything. And he was talking about, yeah, there's a lot of people advancing in these circles, a lot of events that I could be a part of and use my voice, but it's like, it's okay. We all have work to do. And so that might
Right.
not be my area, but I could come over here and do some work. So yeah, I like how you kind of put it, giving people the space and everything, use your own gifts. And I think that's part of what I want to start challenging people to do is like find your own expertise. You don't have to be, holding up the protest sign. You could be, you know, building a city, building a neighborhood, buying up
Right.
90 plus acres of land like those that group of Black families did, just to like that's going to have a ripple effect down the road. So many things that we
Absolutely.
could do professionally, creatively, personally. So there's a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely, man. So I'm excited to see what you do next and see where Boss Locks goes, man. And hopefully I can get involved too.
Oh, that's
Uh,
definitely going to happen.
but I want to talk a little bit about the Crown Act. You wrote a couple pieces on it, and of course, it ties right into Boss Locks. Um, and right now, it's been passed in about 10 states. Uh, it's growing in a few places. They've got some legislation that's been inspired in a couple other states. Um, I don't know. Do you want to break it down for people and kind of tell them about the CARE Act and I guess like why
Yeah.
it's so important that we make this a thing?
It's really amazing kind of what's happening there with the Crown Act. So for those who are like Crown Act, what's that? Sounds cool. What is it? But basically Crown stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. And what it's doing, it's a bill, and it's been like you said, passed in a couple of states. California is the first state to pass it. And it's basically saying, okay, all these companies, all these organizations out there, you could do whatever you want. But if you're found kind of guilty of discriminating against someone working there or who wants to work at your company based on natural hair, we're going to bill you. You're going to face some penalty for that. So it kind of holds people accountable for creating non-toxic work environments for Black people. But not only that, the Crown Act, it's created by a Black woman, uplifted, like powered, pushed, like Black women really coming together to push this, and men too. But it affects everyone. There's a lot of people with natural hair who have faced some type of discrimination. It's crazy. Like what's happening to Black people is 10x, but it really helps a lot of people in spaces who don't have to change the way they look to make other people feel comfortable. And while there's still a lot to work to do to get it passed federally and in every state and all that, like I actually had a guest on my show, shout out, he goes by Rival, but he actually benefited from the Crown Act. So he wasn't able to share too many details now because it was literally like as I spoke to him, like the whole process was in the works, but he was using the Crown Act to kind of combat some discrimination that he faced earlier that year. So it's not just a bill that sounds cool. It's a bill that's already helping people and hasn't even been fully passed. So I'm really excited about it. I think I'm also seeing people in other countries, like in UK, they have a version of the Crown Act. It's something. When I started my podcast, one thing I was saying is like the jig is up. Hair discrimination will no longer be tolerated. And it's like the Crown Act is calling people out. It's like, hey, you've been doing this for a long time, and it is what it is, but that's not going to happen anymore. You're gonna respect me for who I am and not run away because of my hairstyle.
Right. So I'm looking at what's this, Birdie.com, and it looks like it's been passed in California, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Colorado, Washington, Maryland, Connecticut, New Mexico, Delaware, and Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And that's of May 5th, 2021. So it's gaining some steam, but there's also been a big push for it to go federally, like you said. And one of the biggest brands who is in front of it is Dove. We know Dove from the soaps, and that's good. Got to keep your hands nice and moisturized, and you know what I'm saying. They haven't till recently gotten involved heavy with the Black community with it, especially with products. But I thought it was interesting that when I look up the Crown Act, they're the biggest brand by far that's associated with the Crown Act, and I didn't really see like Black brands who I would think would be all on top of this and trying to get this push. I even think about Georgia and some of the hair brands that are here, and why isn't Georgia on that list? Mm-hmm. So, my question to you is like, what do you think about Dove being the biggest brand pushing the Crown Act, rather than some of our own community players?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's really interesting. And I'll say like Dove has surprised me with the consistency. Like they were there at the little beginning of this Crown Act campaign and or the Crown Act movement as the biggest sponsor leading the way, definitely like full on partner. So I mean I have to applaud them for that.
Absolutely. Give credit.
Yeah. At the same time, it's so interesting because I used to use Dove, but I don't anymore just because I learned that it's not like the best for me to use for my skin. I use black soap or I'll use other types of soap by black people and everything. So it's like a couple things. One, it does make me question where is everyone else. And I do know that there are some companies that actually do, they advocate for the Crown Act. To see a lot of support across the board. But like you said, it hasn't been passed in Georgia yet. I know it's been discussed, and it could be based on who's like, the current leader of the state and everything, but it has yet to be passed. Definitely interest, a lot of work there. But yeah, I guess it's almost a couple things. I wonder what the motive is from Dove for taking part of this, and also wonder where the support is like from other black owned companies, and are they actually a part of the conversation or just post about it on social media? Because there's a difference there, being behind the scenes at the table, coming up with the ideas and contributing there versus just
Right.
liking, commenting, and sharing. It's all good, but I definitely would love to see some more black owned brands behind it, not just this. And I guess, to be super clear, it's because there's a lot of performative support out there.
I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it's a lot of performative support, and Dove is supporting the way we want them to see it supported. But I'm also wondering, like, are they just doing this to grow their brand? Like, who are they uplifting in their own company for this? Are they kind of giving back to black communities in a different way? I want to see them doing more than just supporting this, which is important, but I want to see, long-term plans at play.
Right. You want to see a 360 all around support for black people if you're going to do that.
All around support. Yeah. And this is like a huge thing. Not every company is doing this to that level, but also don't really know. It's just like there's so much we don't know. We see their logo associated with the Crown Act, but is that it? Is it just, a couple dollars to promote it? Or like, are they actually creating products that are healthy for black skin and everything across the board? Or are they just like, yeah, go ahead and get this Dove Bath and Body Wash? Like, what else are they doing?
I don't know, man. Maybe they're trying to be the official ally soap.
The ally soap. That'll be the new Pepsi, for the protests. Here's some soap.
Right. There's really no telling, but I really would like to think that their intentions are pure,
Right.
because it's an important thing, and if you do have some power, putting something in or putting some resources into something that other people will benefit from, I think is always going to be a worthy cause, no matter what you get out of it. You know what I'm saying? Even if it does help their bottom line, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
the net positive I see is this becomes a federal law, and you can't do this in any state. And
That's right.
if we get there and we ride the Dove wings all the way there, you know what I'm saying? We that's what we're gonna have to do.
Hey.
But I'm with you. Like, I think I would like to feel the conversation about the Crown Act just a little bit more. Because I heard you on the podcast talking with Adrian Cole and what's your man's name?
Steve Worthy.
Yeah. I'm about to say Worthy podcast. But him and Steve Worthy, I heard y'all talking about being in the barbershop, and that's a place where I don't hear it. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I should see a poster board about the Crown Act in every barbershop and beauty salon, especially in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should be talking about this and putting this to a vote, even though it's a lightweight issue as far as, some of the real big injustices. I'm like, an injustice is an injustice anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And if we're going to take that approach, I feel like everybody needs to do their small part. And, I would like to see more hair brands do a little bit of their part.
Right.
They benefit off the community. Like, even the ones that we know have been sold to holding companies, that are black operated.
Hmm.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that you can still do your part. You know,
Right.
it's not limited just to them.
Yeah.
Um, but you brought up the thing about the full on support, and 2020 was like the wokest year ever. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
every brand decided to be woke. Hashtag BLM. Every LinkedIn corporate page had a black profile from the HR manager to department head. You know what I'm saying? Like it was everywhere. And me, you, and the rest of us, we were all just skeptical as far as what does this really mean? You know what I'm saying? Y'all tweet out a fist, emoji or two, and you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden you part of the movement, but we didn't really get everybody to put some real action behind what they were talking about. Um, and so I guess the thing that really came out of it was the push for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. That to me, like that was the biggest thing to come out of it. And so that's a subject that's right up your alley. So I
Mhm.
guess what have you seen that's like real positive in the diversity and inclusion part of what came of the 2020. Of course, y'all know what happened with George Floyd and um everything there, but like what did you really see, or like what are people talking about when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the workplace now?
You know what? It's interesting because I think it kind of pairs with the pandemic as well. Is
This is true. I didn't even mention that, but
Yeah, but I think the most or so two things. One, I'm really glad for the first time I saw what it was like to be black in other countries. And by that I mean now I have some like relationships with some black people and organizations in the UK, and I've never even considered like beyond just like, oh yeah, black in the UK, they probably have some experiences, but now getting to hear their stories and seeing them kind of fight for their equality as well over in the UK, and everything in Africa, just seeing all these different people and their lives and the oppression that they experience. So it's the first time I saw it right up in my face, like just can't ignore it, can't look away. It's like, okay, they've got some things they're fighting it as well. Not only that, they're supporting what we've got going on over here in the US. So it was like the world was closer than ever before. Then also I saw a lot of people questioning like why they're putting up with discrimination, which I don't always see this kind of paired, but it's really mental abuse, all these things. So like
mm,
why are they putting up with all this in the workplace? Like I don't know about you, but I saw so many like retail locations, fast food restaurants, and like just jobs in general, just putting up all these hiring signs. It's like, oh wow, so many companies hiring, but it's because so many companies people are leaving. They're like, nah, I'm done with all this. So I
right.
like that because it's like we're finally kind of forcing companies, organizations to pay attention and respect us. So I like that. Even with all the woke performative stuff, posting the black squares, it's like, okay, at least you're acknowledging that something isn't right. And I guess that's the first part. So I guess now it's 2021. So all these companies who were, posting about Black Lives Matter, it's been a while. It's not as much of a trending topic anymore. So now I'm kind of looking at the brands and like, okay, so where are you now? Like, are you doing the things that you said you're going to do like a whole year ago? So it's like a combination of things. It's like, okay, it's great to see all that. I felt seen for the first time. I'm not going to lie. It was weird. I didn't know if it was real
Really?
or not, but it was real. And so now it's like, okay, so where are we now? It's a whole year later. And obviously, not everything's going to be fixed, but by now, you should at least have gotten started. So um, I'm seeing people continue to question, continue to ask questions, and also companies who are actually trying to change in some type of way. So I think from this year till next year, we're going to see like who's actually been putting in the work. And those are the people who, I got to give them, an applause. They might be not be getting it right, but at least they're doing the work, and that's what matters uh, more than anything else. So we'll see. We'll see. You have to catch me this time next year as well. We have to do a whole review. A whole bunch of companies be like, all right, so
Right.
what do they change?
Let me
What have
check
they
your
done?
report card. Let me
Exactly. So yeah, it's great. And people are debating things like critical race theory is important in schools or not, and it's all
Man,
like a distraction.
don't
It's
get me
like
started on that shit, man.
right, man. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of people falling back on what's comfortable to them, and that's expected, of course. But I think at least people are creating budgets for diversity and inclusion thing. People are, um, you know, at least trying to make work environments a bit more inclusive and things like that. So at least there is a difference now compared to before. But me personally, I feel like all these things are the bare minimum. So it's not all that impressive to me, but it's appreciated.
You know what you just said, and it reminds me, like, you just hit on this article, the one I just sent you before we had started.
About dignity.
Yes, and the diversity thing really comes from a need for that dignity. And I want matter of fact, let me give her some credit. Her name is Ada Miriam Davis. I'm actually pulling this from the Stanford Social Innovation Review. I was not familiar with this publication, but I was doing some research, and one of the things that she said in the article is, for Black and Indigenous people, dignity is the actionable affirmation of a person's inviolable and sacred personhood, a quintessential value for oppressed people who have experienced centuries of dehumanization and discrimination. Now, I felt that that part really sums up what we're always trying to get. It's just having that dignity, that expectation that
Mhm.
we can actually get something done. Having that be something that we don't always get. And she even points it out in the article. Oh, you're so articulate. You speak so well. Like, that's so backhand. Like, why would you expect me to talk good? You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I did that on purpose. But like, I want I want people to understand that when it comes to diversity in the workplace, that we're not just talking about being accepting of how I look. It's changing your expectations of what you can get from me. And I really think you did a good job just hitting on how, like, important that part is.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. And it was interesting, like like the expectations for Black people. I know when I was younger, I definitely got a lot of people who, liked me and everything, like teachers and stuff. But I always wondered, like, are you like proud of me because you think I can't do anything? Or
Right.
am I really just that great? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So I've always felt that, people like seem to applaud. And I'm just like, I mean, I just kind of read something, but it's like, oh, you did so well, but did you just expect me to just completely stumble and not be able to read? It's crazy. That was me as a kid, but that's real life. I had an interview with Mac on my podcast, and he was talking about how he just started at this company, and I forgot what it was he was doing, but he did something, and people were impressed, and it was like, oh, someone came up to him and was like, oh, it must be all that basketball you play. That's why you're able to do this. And I was like, whoa, that's like completely out of nowhere. Like nothing to do with anything. There was no reason for him to assume that he is able to do the things he could do because of playing basketball. So it's crazy, like the assumptions and expectations people have of Black people. And there was someone, I want to say it was Charlamagne the God, who was speaking about what real, like allyship and like real like inclusion is. And like for a lot of people, they're accepted into workplaces, people love them, support them up until they start to rise above them. So it's like, no, I
Mm.
can only trust you to be an ally if you're okay with me, surpassing you and being in a position where you actually have to answer to me. Like that's I think that's a real difference between being an
That's
ally and doing the woke performance stuff.
That's really important. Because I think about that all the time, and it is not until you could potentially outshine or even look like something better than what's going on um around you, and people will definitely oppress you when you get to that point. And I feel like that is a real deal statement. And I'm like, I'm not even trying to put myself in it, but it just makes me think about this old job I had, as the parts manager at a car dealership. And I couldn't do anything that I actually wanted to do because like I wanted to do a good job, but that wasn't everybody else's best interest was for me to do a good job. Their best interest was to me to just stay in the parts department and do what was necessary for them to make money. Um, so yeah, man,
Yeah.
I definitely can sink my teeth into that concept, man. Now, we've been going on for a little bit, man, but I don't want to hog up all your time. But while I got you here, man, you have the Boss Locks podcast. Um, you are, an interviewer. To me, I admire your podcast because you ask some really good questions, and you're really true to what you're trying to get across with Boss Locks. And so I guess I'm gonna start with, besides Joe Rogan, like who's probably your biggest podcaster influence? And if it is Joe Rogan, we can leave it there because I mean, the dude is legend. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's nothing wrong with that. But I was just a little curious, man. Like, who are like your podcast all stars that you got to listen to for some inspiration?
That's a good question. I will, give Joe Rogan the applause because, and I'll be honest, I actually don't listen to his show that much, but it's like you can't not, give him the credit because he's done a lot and he's really transformed how people look at podcasters. Not only that, I actually do admire the show because he has people like all sorts of people on. And that's actually is something that I want to be able to do is, not only be able to actually, it's something I do is really look to bring people from all backgrounds on, regardless of success level. But
that intellectual curiosity.
exactly.
it's-
Like you can learn something from anyone. So I'm ready to bring. I won't mention it here, but yeah, there's definitely like some industries I want to bring on just because I think there's a lot of like perspectives that need to be shifted. But I think that my actual like people I study and everything, one is Jamel Hill. She has the Jamel Hill is
Unbothered.
Unbothered. I love that show. I love the way it's formatted. She interviews people. So definitely a record. In fact, when I speak to people and they're like saying they want to start a podcast, and an interview based one, I tell them to listen to her show because I think it's incredible. That's a Black woman for those who don't know. Also Van Latham, and he now has, I think the show is Higher Learning and it's part of The Ringer.
With Rachel Lindsay.
Yeah. And
I fucks with Van. That's the homie right there. Shout out to Van.
Oh yeah. I mean, I started
And
listening to
Rachel.
him when he had Red Pill with TMZ, and that was like one of my favorite podcasts. But now he's over Higher Learning, which is still a really cool show. So I listen when I can. So those two are definitely like top tier. And then I can't, I don't listen anymore, but Joe Budden, I think I like how he's positioned his show. But more than that, I think I like that he has a couple different shows that he have, and they're all kind of different formats. And so I like that. Like State of the Culture, I think is one of the best shows I ever created. I really love that show. So I say those are probably the three. Charlamagne the God, got to throw him in there as well. I could probably keep going, but I'm gonna stop there. There's actually a lady, and I don't want to drag a blank on her name right now, but she has a Side Hustle Pro, a Black woman. Her podcast is really, really good as well.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, in fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and look it up right now because it's important to give people a full credit.
No, absolutely. Why are you looking at it? I just say like I'm actually a fan of all of those podcasts. I haven't listened to Jamel in a while. I was really a fan of what her and Michael Smith used to do with His and Hers. And I wish they would have just kept it a podcast. It was perfect as is. When it turned into a TV show and then the Sports Center, it just went kaput. But you know, I love that iteration of what they did. So I'm pretty sure that I know what she's doing now is great. And not to skip over anybody, but just to talk about Joe Budden. I like what Joe was doing early and even to like the end of the Spotify run. It seemed like they were keying in on something, which is the fact that Joe is an actual rapper who, you know, had a run in the industry, knows everybody who we talk about, and sounds really informed when he talks about hip hop. Because I actually just listened to him break down Kendrick's verse on Family Ties.
Yeah, I was listening to that as well.
Boy, hey, bro, I'm just saying like that, bro. Us Geminis, man, you know, we just know how to get a point across sometimes. You know, it is what it is, and he definitely got his point across on that one. But just hearing Joe talk about that and the fact that he felt like it was just a Drake diss, in the way he broke that down, I'm like, okay, I don't really think nobody else would break that down this way, and it's only because you've been in that arena that you really could even. I could even understand why you would think that, because if I would have said that shit, it would be like, fuck, what are you talking about? But based on what he's doing, he has found his lane in being able to talk about these real nuanced takes. And, you know, even though he does shout about them, they still sound very well articulated and they make sense. So I fool with Joe on that tip, but you know, he's got some other issues I'm gonna need him to get worked out before I can really get all the way on board. But you know, the takes are the takes.
Takes are the takes. That's right. Yeah, and I think you know, you could acknowledge people's strengths and also at the same time, you know, hold them accountable for growth, because I think that growth is important, especially someone who has that, you know, strength. So you got to see you on the other side. So get everything worked out, and we'll see you when you're ready. But in the meantime, definitely got some strong takes on everything. Definitely someone to watch. You know, you can still learn from people and their stumbles and everything like that. So I 100% feel you.
Right. So who was that podcast? The
Side Hustle Pro. And I'm gonna apologize in advance. I might butcher the name, but it's Miss Okome. Her name is Nicola Matthews Okome. But Side Hustle Pro, it's her own show. Black woman. She interviews other Black businesses. I don't really know if she keeps it to Black entrepreneurs, but she just has entrepreneurs all across the spectrum, just kind of talking about, you know, side hustle to full on entrepreneurship. And
I'm gonna check that out.
Oh yeah, most definitely. In fact, her show, and I just remember this other one that I'm gonna have to name these next two because they're important, yo. NPR has a show called How I Built This with Guy Raz. I think he's one of the best interviewers, and their whole team. They do a lot of research to make that show, but it's really great to. It's a great show to learn from and get inspired by. Of all these stories they get from people who started in the basement and now own like Home Depot and all these things. So that one. And then last one I'll mention is Earn Your Leisure. I'll always support that show. Even if I don't listen, I'll support it because it's two Black guys who started. One was a teacher, a finance teacher at a school, and just turned it into this whole brand where he's got people like Gary V, Dame Dash, or like calling him, be like, yo, let me get on the show. So Earn Your Leisure. If you know, not even if you're Black and in business, but you know, if you like to learn, like to study, want to grow, definitely check out Earn Your Leisure. They started off as a show that kind of teaches the money moves and the business that had to be done behind the scenes for all these great entertainment deals. Now they've like gone off to all these different ways and have actually kind of put people in positions to kind of take a side hustle from idea to actually implementing it. So Earn Your Leisure. I'll end with that one because that's another inspiration, and that's a one that has actual impact on communities as well. So
okay, you know what? Everybody talks about that show.
Check it out,
because it's on the Black Effect with Charlamagne, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Okay,
is
so
actually.
I've seen it, and for whatever reason, the only one I've watched is the Dame Dash one, of course. Because that's the one that everybody was talking about. But I
Right.
didn't go back and check. I was just be like, what is this bootleg operation that? Or
They had
why is
Shaq.
Dame Dash make y'all can looking bootleg right now? But
Right.
come to find out, they was legit, and Dame Dash was just being bootleg. Like, okay, I get it now. I understand. It wasn't you.
It was crazy, man. I think they like, they there's this one part where Dave Dash was like coming at them and they stood their ground, but it's like only so much you could do. It's Dame is a legend. But yeah, they also had Shaq
Man.
on the show. That interview was I had to rewind that one, play it back a couple times. That was a really amazing
I'm gonna
interview.
have to go back and listen to some of their stuff. They seem to have gotten where I was working toward in 2016, which is
Yeah.
having this, interview like black business type of show that kind of brought that barbershop energy,
Hmm.
to the black business talk. And I think that's why a lot of people really do recommend that show a lot. So I'm gonna have to go ahead
Yeah.
and push myself into that. Sometime I will get into my creative bag, and I'm just like, I can't hear anything right now.
I feel
I
that.
need to just
You
listen to
gotta
my
do that
own thoughts.
sometimes. You gotta put the blinders up.
Right. And so I find myself getting into that trap. But next chapter we're exploring the podcast. I'm going on a mission. Nobody's gonna
Mhm.
pay me to do this, but I'm gonna listen to a bunch of podcasts.
Oh yeah.
So if anybody out there is listening to this podcast and you want me to listen to it at CL Pod Game on all your favorite ones, I will give it a listen. Uh, but let's keep this interview going. So we've been talking about podcasting. So you're a host right now. You're being interviewed, but you're usually in the other seat. So who is your dream interview? Like who are you
Mm.
chasing the most right now that would just make you feel like, okay, if I did not do another episode ever again, I would be fine.
Dang. Another episode ever again. Well, first let me say, I got time, so we could keep going. But yeah, you know how there's been all those Twitter debates. Like, would you take the $500 to have dinner with Jay-Z?
Right.
And like people definitely calling people who taking the dinner with Jay-Z dumb and all these things. But yo, I'm a podcaster. I need that interview. So I'm gonna
I
pull
need
up,
that
even if it's
interview,
five
bro.
minutes and he leaves. I'm gonna get that dinner with Jay-Z. That's gonna be called too. Episode 87, Dinner with Jay-Z. Yeah, that one for sure, because I think he's definitely someone who, like, when I started the show, the slogan was redefine professionalism. Now it's kind of changed or evolved into the story of new growth. But I think he kind of
I
fits
seen
in
that.
both of those.
He
Yeah, just him like starting to grow locks. A lot of people, questioning
literally
everything.
he's
But
grown
like,
into your fan base. I mean, into
yeah,
your
man.
interview base.
For real, he put himself there. I was gonna try to figure out like how can I fit him in, but he said, you know what, Walt, I got you. Yeah, I'm in the thing. But
That's a good
I
look.
think regardless of like how people feel about him, he's in these rooms with like Robert Kraft and all of them, looking at
Yeah.
him, his free form locks, and they have to respect him, even if they don't like him. Like, they're doing business with them, someone with locks, someone who maybe previously they would have associated with criminal activity and all these things, or being dumb and all this. And he's be like, no, I'm here. You want to do business with me? You got to take me as I am. So I think there's so many stories he could probably share. And that's something like, a lot of people I interview, they don't always get to talk about hair and how it's, affected the way they walk, the way they move and everything like that. So I'm sure he has plenty of stories of like how that's come into play. Chloe and Holly, they're they definitely they're winning in all forms. But there was some interview a long time ago when they almost didn't get the role or didn't get the role because they wouldn't cut their locks. So there's all these stories I'm sure plenty of people have of being kind of faced with the ultimatum about cutting their locks and they chose not to, or they went ahead and chose to go ahead and cut them so that they could just live and just be. So definitely need that dinner with Jay-Z. He's the person who I could retire after that, but I won't. That's just gonna be a whole new
Right.
world, you know.
Right. That's the one that's gonna be on the Facebook and the Instagram ad for you to
Oh
click
yeah.
on and watch the entire interview. It's like you
Entire
just
interview.
this is
All the mess ups, all the flubs. You're gonna get the full thing, start to finish. Yeah.
I mean, sure, it might be Patreon exclusive. I don't know, man. How would you do that one? Would you make if you had the Jay-Z interview? Would you clip it and put the rest of it behind your Patreon wall?
So I'm very big on Patreon, but I'm also like so now I have I signed up for a lot of different subscriptions and stuff, but I still remember when I was doing the most I could just to find links to watch something. I couldn't afford to pay for this or that. So um I I think some things will eventually be behind a paywall, but I'm going to try my best to make sure everyone always has access to things I do. And that interview is one that I would definitely want people to have access to. So, but at the same time, also know there's a whole business side of things as well. So I do like a couple things. I would clip it. I would like tease the internet, have it in different like solo episodes I do. I'd write blogs about it, take one sentence to write whole pieces about it. And then I would put it up on Patreon,
Okay.
have it there for maybe a month. I'm letting all the secrets go. So when this happens, people are going to go back like, oh, after a month, he's going to let it all out. It's all cool, but I'm cool with that. Wait if you want. So put it behind the Patreon for a month, grow that up some, and then finally put it out into the world as a full interview. And then an interview like that's going to be relevant for years. So I'll end up creating more clips from it that could like turn into a lot of different things, because I'm gonna ask a lot of different questions on the interview. Get it all 50 questions in 5 minutes. So
man, what you talking about?
yeah,
Bro? I'm getting. I think if I was to do Jay-Z, I would have very like questions that like are important to me. And
right,
see, I would need to be able to ask Jay-Z almost anything.
exactly.
I'm sure there are some things legally he can't talk about, but I need some nitty gritty. Like I need to know like, bro, what the hell happened with Dame, bro? Like, did Dame just lose his shit? You know what I'm saying? Like what happened, bro?
Yeah,
But no, man, I feel you, bro. Like Jay-Z is definitely one of those figures. I mean, especially for like us, because we about the same age. And we looked up to Jay-Z in a certain way. And to see him literally grow into, not only the billionaire, like somebody who came from, selling dope, rap, and straight up businessman, to, now like you said, like dude has grown his hair out. Like now he's a symbol for, what you can look like with $1 billion. And me, I'm like, at first I'm like, bro, it's like you 40 something, bro. You look goofy as hell right now. But when you say that, I'm like, you know what though? Maybe he's not doing it for him. Like maybe this is for everybody else. I never really looked at it until you really said that and we had this conversation. So I am interested to see like, into some of those things. Like, are you doing some of this stuff on purpose, or is this just, who you are and you just growing and just you in a different phase in your life?
right, exactly. And that could be it all. It all could be, the answer could be yes to all of it. I think
Right.
I'm sure they have to know that certain things they do will have an effect and people will look at it a certain way. So at one point it's like, okay, are you doing it performative? But at the same time, you gotta live with the hairstyle. Like having locks
Yeah.
isn't just a look. That's a whole lifestyle. Things are gonna come with it. So, it has to be like a combination. And it's interesting, people say like, oh yeah, he's already successful. He got, now he's doing the locks. But it's like how long has he wanted them as well? That's another question
is
I've
true.
asked. And then it's funny, while we're talking about him and getting his locks, I also think about Lena Waithe, who found success with locks and then cut them afterwards, just to change it up. So I think she'd be like another person. Yeah, she'd be another person I'd have to interview, just talk about like that whole decision, coming up with locks and just continuing not to rise. fight through everything without cutting them. So I'm sure she's got stories too.
Absolutely. I'm about to say, what about Ava?
Ava DuVernay, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that definitely got to have her on. I think you know what's interesting? I feel like with that one, that would have to be like that'd have to be a whole display. You know, she and Jay-Z, like just the way she moves and everything is really interesting, and like what's important to her and who she supports, and then the whole um the like the impact she's having on film is really interesting. So that's a good one. I definitely have her on. And I think with that, I might actually have to have like few other people join me to interview her, like
Mm.
just
Doing her in like
because
a panel.
almost because I think like with Jay-Z, you know, there's lots of questions I have, but I think for her, you know, it almost have to have a whole different approach.
You might want to do that with a woman who
Exactly. That's
could
exactly what
just
I'm
have
thinking.
that connected experience to who she is. I could
Right.
understand that. That does
Yeah.
make sense.
And it's like, you know, I have plenty of questions I could ask her. It would be a great interview, but I think for that one, it would have such a further impact. In fact, when I first started Boss Locks, like I said, I thought this was only a me problem. So I was like, okay, I have to interview Black men with locks. And then I started to realize, you know, Black women, you know, there's a lot of things I can still ask them, but there's a whole other side of it besides the professionalism, like being a woman and like presenting in a whole different way. And I feel like I've been able to get some great stories from it. I've done a great job, but you know, having another Black woman there, you could get so much kind of a deeper um episode and more fulfilling and have a deeper impact for other Black women listening. So yeah, for that one, definitely got to do it. Definitely got to have a Black woman with me to conduct that one.
I'm right there with you. And I'm gonna say this, bro, because it just brings it full circle. But bro, I really respect you in the fact that you could give up some of that, because that's a big interview. You could have that interview all to yourself
Hmm.
and just take all the shine, but you're saying that the community and everyone else would get more from this interview if I have someone else who can really connect and make this a great piece of content, man. And so
Yeah.
you're a real, what I would call, community player. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
we're in the Black Podcast Club. You know, you just was at Black Writers Weekend. You got Working While Black. You know, Boss Locks Village. You know, Buy Black Friday. You know, you're always doing like a lot of community stuff. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing like 4 or 5 other things. I don't know what else organizations.
There's always
It's
stuff.
always something that you're involved in the community. And I guess I want to know, like, why is that so important for you personally? And is that the way that you've always been?
Mm. Um, I would say something probably born into, and I say that because I think that I am who I am because of community. One thing my
Okay.
mom always says is like it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that's definitely it. It's a big thing in the Black community. Like, you know, simple things that's like, oh, that's my cousin, but we don't know how we're related. No,
Right.
that's my cousin because you know that's part of the community. You know, you might not be able to, you know, wherever you're living, then you know it might not be okay for you not be able to grow, but now you're part of us. We're going to help you out so that you know, even if your mom has to work literally all day, you're still going to get some food, and she doesn't have to worry as much about that. So yeah, I've definitely have benefited from having other people in my mom's community help me out when she either wasn't able to or either had to take care of some other things as well. So it's definitely kind of bored into that. And then also it's just important, you know, like Black Writers Weekend, for example. Shout out to Tamika Mallory. Um, she created this whole event that wasn't even about her. It's about helping writers advance and everything. And like I'm out here looking at all these different Black leaders doing some wonderful things, and you know it's all amazing and things that I couldn't do myself. I could do something, it'd be great, but they're like focusing in, honing in on that. So why would I want to kind of like create my own version of it when I could put that same amount of energy into creating my own thing and to supporting what they've got going on? And that's how you
Mm,
get like the next $1 billion Black businesses, by like supporting the things that people are already doing well. And so for me, my whole goal with Boss Locks, it's like, of course, I want to be up there like all the
right.
masses and riches and everything, but it's gonna suck if like I'm like doing all that like myself. I want to see all the people I'm interviewing succeed as well. So my whole goal is really to unite and bring people together, uplift, and give people the support they need. Because like it's almost a little selfish if we're just out here taking all the benefits in. And then further than that, it makes things a lot easier. So like you and I, we're in like not different worlds, but we're all on different things, and we could come together and collaborate. Like I've never been connected with the African American Marketing Association, but now I have that relationship because of you, because of like the support you've given me and everything. So um it's very important. Community, I think, it's the basis of everything I do. The reason why I'm doing any of this is to help the community. The very first thing I was going to start was a social media marketing YouTube channel and
Mm,
just become like a social media expert. That was going to be my big thing, but it shifted into this. And I'm so happy it's this instead of that. Cause like social media, who cares that much? Like
right.
Black lives, that's important, man. I could do that for free. Just talk about it all day long. So it's very important. I had this, there was in college, there was this I don't know what the right title is, but I'll say he's a spiritual leader, Matt Cross. He was a white person, but he had this church called Surf Church. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from him was that life is all about the relationships that you make and build and everything. So that's been another thing that's been like just stuck in my mind a lot lately. It's just about, the relationships you build, like that's what matters more than anything else. So yeah, it's like you can get lost without having that community aspect there, without making sure your relationships are strong. So yeah, I know that's a long answer, but
No, that's real though.
community and relationships, that's really my core. That's without that, it's just I'm just doing random stuff.
No, that's real because it puts more purpose, behind what you do. It's like you said, it's not just for you,
Mm.
because I know when I think about some of the things that I have to do every day, I think about my kids and the fact that I'm trying to build something for them that they can inherit, something that will make their life easier, give them more opportunities. And it's not about me. And then of course, once this work gets out into the world, it's like what type of impact are you really having? Are you just, out here just helping people get by, through their work day, or are you really trying to inspire something? And so what you're doing is definitely inspirational. Thinking about how it is just to have an experience in a place where you might not get all the respect, and you're talented and you're not seen as such because of whatever reason.
Mhm.
And so, man, I really do find what you do to be very inspiring, and I'm definitely going to be here to support you through and through, man. So I should we running about an hour, man. So anything else you want the people to know about Boss Locks? And I guess go ahead and tell people where to find you.
Yeah. First off, appreciate you once again for kind of making this interview happen, and for everyone listening. I appreciate you listening all the way through. I know it's a lot, but I think kind of the conversation we've had is important, and one that definitely needs to be heard. So I definitely appreciate you just listening to what I have to say. You can find me as the easiest way to do is just go to the website bosslocksmedia.com. That is BOSS LOCKS media MEDIA.com. The K in Boss Locks is important because one, you got to have it to find me, but also the K stands for knowledge of self. I always like to keep that in there.
Mm.
We're also, of course,
Oh,
on all
I
the
I
social
wonder
media
about that.
platforms. And I would say, besides the website, check out our Working While Black Facebook group, because that's the place where we could come and be our true authentic selves without having to, hold back or filter anything for anyone else. So definitely those two places, Boss Locks Working While Black, and the website bosslocksmedia.com, and all the podcasting platforms, of course, as well. So yeah, I appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening.
Absolutely, man. And I'm going to make sure that every single one of those links are in the show notes so you can get with Walt and get some of that boss locks in your life. I know I didn't get a chance to come on while I had my locks.
I missed that. I missed the window.
But things happen, you know what I'm saying? It was a new chapter, and I still feel like I can contribute whether or not I had the locks. We can still talk. I can talk about my lock journey within that, because it might be full circle.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I was holding back asking you questions, so I'm ready to have you on the show. I got questions for you, man.
Hey, man, it's whatever, man. But I appreciate everybody out here listening to Marketing for the Culture. Y'all get the podcast on your favorite podcast catcher, aa-ma.org. And man, Walt, I appreciate you for coming on. And we out here. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.